Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cascadia and Swingers. Sorry it's taken so long for John and I to get this show out there. We've been busy. John, I know he's been doing some projects at his house. I've been busy with work, and it's just been really tough for us to get together to do these shows. I almost did one myself just to make sure we got something out there. But at the same time, I was just so busy I couldn't get out and do it. But we are going to get right into this. And just act like nothing has happened with us missing shows. And we're just going to get right into our first match, which was Seattle at home facing Minnesota United. And I was interested in this match purely because I was unsure how Seattle was going to play, losing Morris to the loan over to England or Wales, and then getting injured and not coming back, and then how Freddie Montero would play up front with Raul Ruidiaz. In fact, Montero actually did not start in this match. It was Will Bruin that started in this match, and he ended up playing out of his mind in this one. John, what were your thoughts?
Well, first, I would like to welcome our fans back and welcome 2021. The season has begun. It was great to watch soccer over this past weekend. I think I watched almost half of all of the games at MLS. I just had it on the TV all day. I made sure to watch Seattle. I made sure to watch Portland and Vancouver. So for me, it was a great weekend to be watching soccer again. The Sounders did kick us off on Friday night. That game looked ugly in that first half for the Sounders. They looked like they didn't know what they were doing. The new formation looked like a mess. They had no Nico Ladero, who got injured in practice the week before. So they had to start the 19-year-old Josh Atencio in the midfield. And it didn't look pretty. And I know heading into the first game, there's actually quite a few analysts that were talking about how this might be the down year for the Sounders. This might be the year they missed the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. They lost Morris, all these things. But they pulled it together in the second half. Like you said, Will Bruin started to make some magic happen. He had a sweet assist on the turn for the second goal. And all in all, they pieced it together and looked like a really, really deadly team in the second half. We do have to talk about, just for a second, how great Paulo's goal was, though. Eddie, it looks like very similar to Nagby's goal of the year from last year. Would you put it up in that category?
Oh, for sure. Even commentators were saying, it might be the first goal of the year for the Sounders, but it might be goal of the year as well. It was that great of a goal. Just taking that light touch, first touch, and then a screaming sideways kick into the back of the net. I mean, you can't get much better than that, I feel.
I know. The MLS Facebook page was already comparing it to last year's goal of the year winner. They put them side by side. If you guys are on Facebook and you follow MLS, I'm sure some of you guys have seen it. If not, check it out. But they literally put them one on top of the other. You can watch them both happen at the same time. I actually like Paulo's better than Nagby's from last year because Paulo has to pick it out of the air versus Nagby's came on a pass in the ground and he chipped it up to himself from the ground. So personally, I like Paulo's better. Nagby's was great, obviously great enough to win last year's goal of the year. But we'll definitely have to watch to see how that pans out at the end of the year.
Yeah, if that's how we're going to start the year off with goals, I mean, geez, we're going to be in for one heck of a year.
Yes, we are. As for Montero, I have to backtrack a little bit. I know you mentioned him coming on the field. People forget that he had a stretch of games last year with Vancouver where he was absolutely on fire. And Vancouver fans remember it. We remember it because we talked about it after he made me eat crow for saying that his days were done. He comes onto the field in this game and he made a difference, had some nice passes and the fourth goal.
I think it only took him, 13 minutes to get that goal after coming off the bench? I mean, he was right in the game from the start.
It was quick. Either way you look at it, Seattle put the doubters to bed early in this one, or I shouldn't say early in this one, but early in the season. As for Minnesota goes, I feel bad for them because they're running off this high of last season, making it to the Western Conference Finals. Was it an off day for them, or did they just run into a Sounders team that's better than them?
I actually thought the two sides were pretty even, especially after that first half going into half at 0-0. Second half, I mean, it took an amazing goal from Paulo to get things kicked off. And you can be the best team in the world, but you're not stopping that. And from that point on, they're trying to play catch up and get the equalizing goal. And that was probably the reason why the Sounders were able to get behind them and get a couple more goals. That's my opinion. I think Minnesota will be just fine this season. I don't think they're a bad team. Um, it was just that's how the ball went.
Right, and the ball went in Seattle's favor, a 4-0 win over Minnesota. Great way to start the season. One last question before we move away from this game. What do you think of Nuhu at Central Defense?
Nuhu actually did quite well. He was actually all over the place. I saw him taking away balls from Minnesota players time and time again. I thought he was doing just fine there, which is
he had a couple nervy
interesting.
moments.
Yeah,
But I know you were not a fan of him last year. I'm a huge Nuhu fan. I think his positive plays outweighs his nervy moments. You disagree. Maybe that changes with him at Central Defense this year.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think I liked him at the wing, so maybe being Central Defense with him now all over the field, having more field to cover, maybe that brings him back, not going forward as much as he used to be. Because I think on defense he's great, but with him on the wings, he was trying to push forward way too much, and I didn't feel like that was his position. He shouldn't have been going forward to attack as much as he is. Now with him being a central defender, he's forced to stay back a little bit, and I think that's working better for him, at least in this one match. Another thing I wanted to mention before we go off of Minnesota is another reason why, because I know we have Minnesota fans that do chime into our show. Minnesota had 17 shots, equaling what the Sounders had in this match. So the shots were there. Yes, only 5 of them were on target compared to the Seattle Sounders 9. But I think that as far as shots and goals and attacking, I think Minnesota is going to be just fine.
And to Minnesota's credit, they have one of my favorite players in the league since last season, halfway through last season. Reynoso is so fun to watch. I was texting one of my buddies from Bulgaria, and he likes to watch Reynoso as well. So he's definitely going to be one of the players that I'm constantly looking to find on the TV. I'm going to watch a lot of Minnesota games because of him.
Also, there's 2 former Sounders that are on Minnesota in Alonso and backup goalie
Tyler Miller.
Thank you.
Yes. Yep. They Alonso saw the field. Obviously, Tyler Miller did not. But we will see that a lot this year. You see a lot of Cascadia players around the league. It's always fun to see them playing against their old teams.
All right. So shall we move on to the Cascadia match?
Yes. I was bummed out that I had to wait a whole day to watch this one because it was on Sunday. And so all of Saturday, I'm like ready for it. But we got to watch it. Before we kick that off, let's just congratulate Portland for qualifying for the CCL. They're in the quarterfinals now. They pretty much demolished Marathon at home. Wasn't even a competition. They have a much tougher match next week. We'll talk about that later against Club America. But I'm excited. There's some experts saying that Portland could go all the way. They could be the first MLS team to win this thing. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and just MLS as a whole, there's every team from MLS qualified for the next round. So that's great to see. I think 2 teams are facing off against each other. I think it's Philadelphia and someone, I don't know, I don't care. But we're going to be
we care about Portland. That's what we care about.
Yeah, we're going to be focused on Portland and their match, but we'll get to that match in our next show. But getting into this one, Portland visiting Vancouver in Salt Lake. Vancouver has a new home, and it's not Vancouver, and it's not going to be Vancouver, and it's not going to be Portland this year. It is Salt Lake.
Yeah, so they gave all the Canadian teams home away from home at least for the first part of the season here until the border opens up. Vancouver's playing in Salt Lake City. You've got Toronto playing in Orlando and Montreal playing in Miami. So we'll get extra games in all sorts of areas. But people say that this may give Vancouver the edge this year in the Cascadia standings because Portland has not won at Rio Tinto since 2019, and that trend continued. Vancouver with kind of an upset win, 1-0. A lot of experts had predicted Portland to win this one. Eddie, does this result surprise you?
It surprised me a little bit because I definitely felt Portland was the better team, better side going into this matchup. And if you watch this match, Portland was the more aggressive team. Whenever I saw anyone with the ball, it was Portland attacking. It's just when they got closer to the goal, they just couldn't get it anywhere near the back of the net. It would just go flying all over the place. They had 7 shots on goal, or 7 shots and only 2 on target. So, I mean, that should say something. I think one of those shots on target, if you want to even say it was on target, was kind of from the corner, from the direction of the corner flag, and it was just popped up by the Vancouver goalie. And I don't really count that as a shot on target, but that might have been one of them that the experts put down.
Yeah, if you just watch the game flow from this one, when I was watching it definitely seemed like Portland was the more aggressive side. But Vancouver did what they needed to do. They stayed tight in the defense. They didn't give Portland any strong chances. And then they have their big DP, Lucas Cavallini, come in and get the game winner on a corner. I mean, it wasn't pretty by any stretch of the imagination, but Vancouver got the job done. They walked away with 3 points. Some of that might have to do with, I think Portland was a little bit CCL hangover. They just played Tuesday, which I know that's plenty of rest for these players, but you have to remember that Portland's got some old guys on their team. Diego Chara and Diego Valeri both played in that CCL match on Tuesday, and then they started in this game, which kind of shocked me, knowing that they have got Club America, not this week, but next week. I expected them to rest the legs, especially early in the season. But sure enough, they didn't. And they weren't able to get any points out of it, so it didn't help them either way.
The way I look at it is I feel like these players for Portland have been on Portland for years, and Portland is just getting older and older, and it shows in this one. I feel like the reason why they played their first team starting lineup is 1, because it's opening day. 2, they're facing a Cascadia rival, and for both reasons, they want to get points. So I can completely understand their reasoning for going with the first team, especially because their next CONCACAF Champions League match is not till next week. Mm-hmm. So they got a full
Maybe they'll rest them this week for Houston, against Houston.
I can see them resting against Houston, taking maybe a draw against Houston, or going for at least a draw. But I can definitely see why they went for a first team lineup this week. Another thing I wanted to note, because you were mentioning the goal, is I wanted to mention the play before the goal, because Rose went in and almost snuck the ball past the goalie to get the ball into the back of the net. Unfortunately, it clanged off the post and went out for a goal kick. Or no, for a corner.
The corner, which led to Cavallini's goal.
And you were probably just talking about the general play, but the goal that Cavallini scored off that corner was beautiful. The corner went straight to his head, and he punched it into the back of the goal.
Unmarked. It was so easy for him.
It was so easy, but still, he punched that in with his head with authority, and I absolutely loved every minute of seeing that goal.
It was a good goal for the DP to get to start the season. Great win for Vancouver. A few notes for Vancouver fans, if you did miss the match or were unaware of some of the things that happened. I spent the whole first half looking for Ali Adnan. I Googled his name. I was trying to figure out why he was not playing, because he is their DP left back. for Vancouver. Finally, the announcers finally talked about him and explained what was up. Because he is not Canadian or American, he has to get a green card because they're actually here for a prolonged amount of time, or not a green card, a visa. Sorry, he has to get a work visa because they're here for a prolonged amount of time. That visa hasn't been granted yet, so he is actually not allowed to come into the U.S. to play and stay in the U.S. while they play these games. So that's why Ali Adnan was not on the field, which means that Vancouver can only go up from here when they add that piece to the puzzle.
What was that sound?
Oh, the Jets. We've got an Air Force base right here. So the Air Force
Okay.
practices. What did you make of the new player for Vancouver? The announcers pronounced it Caicedo. I want to say it differently, but I'm going to go with how the announcers were saying it. Were you impressed with him? They say that he's going to become a fan favorite out there in Vancouver.
I'll be honest. I was trying to watch the match, but I was exhausted after work when I was watching it, and so I didn't really.
You caught the highlights.
I watched as much of the match as I could, and then I also watched highlights, but I couldn't get a good grasp of how he did.
Well, it'll be interesting to see him out on the wing. He impressed me. He had a lot of good play. He's going to grow into this team. So I think Vancouver's got a good one with him.
All righty. Well, shall we get into our previews?
Yeah, where do you want to start? We've got 3 good matches coming up here. My favorite is Seattle's matchup because, we're playing Bob Bradley's team. But Vancouver's got another Canadian rivalry game coming up.
I say let's start with the order of the matches and start with Vancouver going to Orlando to face Toronto.
Yeah, this will be a fun one. Vancouver's got a nice little schedule starter. They got rival Portland first, and now they get a Canadian rival in Toronto, which Toronto is playing in CCL as well. We'll see if they decide to rest players or not. But Toronto lost their first game 4-2 to Montreal to start the season. Toronto is not looking good right now, at least in MLS play.
Yeah, this one will definitely be interesting with losing 4-2 to a conference rival, country rival, and now they're going to be facing another country rival. Do you rest players for CCL, or do you risk losing 2 back-to-back matches against your rivals, against your country rivals?
I think so. If I'm Toronto, I'm resting players. That's because CCL's the bigger prize here. You have plenty of games in the season to move up the table and to make the playoffs. If you could walk away with that CCL Cup, why not? So I think Vancouver might get kind of lucky here. They might get a reduced lineup against Toronto, but they're playing on the road. They have to drive all the way to the East Coast. We know how hard it is for teams on the West Coast heading over to the East to play. Do you think Vancouver's got a shot in this one?
Well, with getting that victory at home away from home against Portland, I think that does give some momentum. And I think with the possibility of Toronto resting players, I definitely think that gives Vancouver a good shot of getting the victory in this one. So I'm going to say, yeah.
I think so too, but you have to remember that if Toronto does play their starters, if Pozuelo is starting, who is the MLS MVP from last season, if Michael Bradley is starting, that this Toronto squad has a ton of firepower. They hold the advantage over Toronto in the regular season. Toronto has 9 wins, 3 draws. Vancouver only has 7 wins. So that's going to play a factor in the fact that Toronto typically has Vancouver's number in this one. Although the previous meeting did go Vancouver's favor, 3-2, but that was in Vancouver last season. So
something I'm going to say is I do think that Toronto will rest players in this one as they are focused on CCL. And that right there brings up a point that absolutely love about CCL now is when in the early days of the CCL, when the Sounders were coming into the league in 2009, it seemed like the Sounders were the only team that really took CCL as a meaningful tournament, and other teams would kind of still play their starters for league matches and then kind of put bench players in for their CCL matches because they didn't really take it that seriously. I'm starting to see our MLS sides taking the CCL tournament more seriously as MLS and Liga MX are starting to get a little bit closer, I think, in the quality of play. Liga MX is still far better. I mean, when you can pay your players as much as you want, you're going to be better because you can bring in better talent. But it's nice seeing MLS teams taking this tournament more seriously. I would like to see the tournament eventually evolve, but that's a story for another day. But again, they're taking it more seriously, which I'm very happy about.
Me too. So with Toronto, assuming they have a reduced lineup, what's your score line for this one?
Reduced lineup. I still think it's going to be close because it is going to be in Orlando. And the Canadian teams were allowed to bring their families to their new cities that they're playing.
For how long they're going to be here? I hope so.
Yeah. Well, last season, Vancouver was playing in Portland and living out of a hotel the entire time and didn't get to see their families at all. So I think the fact that they are actually allowed to be with family and make it more of a home away from home, I think that does wonders for them as a home field advantage. So it is going to be a tough match no matter what for Vancouver. But I can still see Vancouver coming away with a victory, maybe 2-1 if it's not if it's a B lineup for Toronto. I think if Toronto comes out with an A lineup, it's going to be a bit tougher. I could see 1-1 in this one.
I'm not sure if Vancouver's offense has enough firepower to put two on the board. So I'm going to say if Vancouver does win this one, it's a B lineup from Toronto and they win 1-0. If Toronto plays their A squad, I think they lose 2-1. So that's my thoughts.
I just don't see Vancouver keeping a shutout two matches in a row for this one.
Yeah, me either. That's why it's kind of hard for me to see Vancouver pulling away with 3 points. I can see a 1-1 draw, but against a full-strength Toronto squad, that's going to be really hard to do. So
you want to move on to LAFC hosting Seattle?
Yeah, for those you Vancouver fans out there, I'm sure you can always find it, but that Vancouver game is Saturday at 12 o'clock. We then head to a 3 o'clock kickoff between Seattle Sounders and LAFC. It is the rivalry that we love up here in the Northwest because we love to be better than Bob, right?
Always love feeling better than Bob. And it's going to be a tough one. In this one, again, LAFC beat the newcomers in the league, Austin FC, 2-0 at home. And yeah, again, it's going to be a tough one for the Sounders, but I think they're up for this one. I got a lot more confidence in the Sounders after seeing that 4-0 victory over Minnesota. And I think that they can maybe get a game in this one.
Yeah, heading down to LA, we know is a tough place to play. You and I went down for the Sounders LAFC game 2 years ago when LAFC just demolished the Sounders. I think the final score line was 4-1 or 4-2. It was ugly.
I don't even think Sounders scored. I think it was 4-0.
No, I know the Sounders scored because they gave us some hope going into halftime.
Okay.
So I know that they had scored, but it was an ugly game. And LAFC playing at home, they're a very, very strong team. They have their usual suspects. They have Carlos Vela, although he mistakenly got subbed out in the last game. If you haven't seen the highlight for that, that's pretty funny. He went down with a knee injury and he waved on the medical staff to help him out. And Bob Bradley thought that meant he wanted to sub out. And so Bob Bradley subbed him out, and when he finally walked around to the side of the pitch to go back on and he found out he was subbed, they had to tell him that he's not in the game anymore, and he was upset. So if you haven't seen that clip, it's pretty funny. They interviewed Bob Bradley about it, and he said it was his fault. But that's going to give them a fresher Carlos Vela, because he only played like 20-something minutes in that game. But he was the MLS MVP from 2 years ago. He's an absolute beast of a player. One of my favorite players to watch. So when he's on the field, they're always a threat to win.
It is going to be a tough one for sure. Vela is always one to watch out for. And the formation that LAFC is coming out with is a very attacking formation. It's a 4-3-3. Do you think that Seattle can stop this 4-3-3 with the 5 defenders in the back?
So the 4-3-3 that LAFC play works because they have such an active 3 in the midfield. Mark Anthony Kaye, Edward Atuesta, and Latif Blessing, they move so much, and they are so annoying to play against because they seem to be everywhere. And so when you have that much movement, you can get away with only 3 in the middle. What Seattle has the benefit of doing is, because they have, if they continue with that 3-5-2, they have 5 guys in the midfield clogging it up, being Paulo, Roldan, and either Ladero or Atencio, depending on if Ladero is healthy. And those 3 guys, they're not quite as speedy as I say these other 3 are, especially Latif Blessing, who I think is one of the fastest midfielders. But those 3 can contain LAFC's 3. But that is definitely the battle to watch as this game unfolds.
It'll definitely be interesting to see how it unfolds and to see who comes back or who starts for Seattle. Like you said, will Ladero be in the lineup for this match? I would love to see him in the starting lineup, but how do you know how bad his injury was?
Well, I know Schmetzer said that it wasn't bad, that there's actually a chance for him to start and play in the opener, that there was rumors that could happen. It didn't happen, and he wasn't even in the 18. So I don't know how much is actually being told to us. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Ladero doesn't play, that they just give him a little bit more time, maybe give him an extra week, because we know Seattle plays Portland the week after that. But your guess is as good as mine. If Ladero can be on the field, he's gonna make it known, and he's gonna be out there.
So what's your prediction for this one?
Well, I think LAFC is much cleaner in the attack than Minnesota is, much more concise. Seattle's defense, especially in that first half, didn't look up to the task with the new formation. So I think LAFC sneaks in 2, maybe 3 in this one. These games are typically high scoring. I'm going to give LAFC the favor in this one. I'm going to say 3-1 LAFC. I don't think Atencio is up to the task quite as much as he needs to be if he is the starter, and the defense just can't keep LAFC contained.
Well, I'm going to make my prediction as if Ladero is going to start in this one, and I do think it's going to be high scoring as well. I think it's going to be tough for Seattle to get the victory in this one, because just LAFC is just so tough. But I'm going to say,
don't forget that LAFC added Corey Baird in the attack, who is a phenomenal striker. I can't believe RSL let him go, but he actually scored a goal for LAFC in their first game. So think about that added firepower and his familiarity with the game and the Sounders being as he played for Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I'm not forgetting it. I'm thinking that this is still going to go LAFC's way. As much as I would love to be for Cascadia, I think it's going to be LAFC 3-2 in this one.
All right. So far, we're not projecting our Cascadia teams to have a very good weekend. Maybe I should find
Don't
something
hate us,
better.
Cascadia Nation. We're just trying to give you an accurate prediction.
We do try to be pretty honest with our projections, and we try not to be too much of a homer. I mean, come playoff time, that'll change. We'll pick the Cascadia teams over everybody, but regular season, we try to keep it pretty fair. So in our final game, we have Portland hosting Houston. This is another one of those games that's really hard to predict because Portland may or may not start their full 11. With the age of Diego Valeri and the age of Diego Chara, I don't think that they start their full 11. What about you, Eddie?
Yeah, I wouldn't think that Portland would start the first 11. And that might hurt Portland in this one, but I don't think Portland is too upset about that one. I think if they come out with a draw, I think Portland will be happy. But with the focus being on CCL, going for the bigger trophy, you got to do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Portland does go with a reserve lineup. I do think you'll see some of the starters like Eric Williamson. I mean, he's a youngster. I think there's no reason why he couldn't play this week on the weekend and midweek. But there is a chance that if this game is close late, that Diego Valeri comes in late to try to get the winner. I have seen in the past, previous years, that the coach for Portland does love to do it. Gio Savarese loves to get Valeri in the game to try to get 3 points if it goes that way. But I don't think they're going to have a chance. This Houston team, if they're at full strength, is looking really strong. I actually have Houston making the playoffs in my playoff predictions. I'm a huge fan of their central midfielder, Memo Rodriguez. Little guy, but can play. And they also have Joe Corona, or El Presidente, as they like to call him down in Mexico. So this Houston team is a very strong team. They got a very, very good 2-1 win against San Jose to actually start the MLS season. They were the first game. You will see a familiar face for Houston, Maxi Urruti, who played for Portland for several years. He is a forward now for the Houston Dynamo, and he scored a goal in the opening game for Houston.
Something I want to note with that Houston victory over San Jose was a match where Wondolowski actually came off the bench in that one, which I was very surprised to see. I know he's getting up there in age, but I feel like he's just like Valeri. I mean, if you're gonna put a starting roster out there, how can you not put Wondolowski out there? I think that might have changed the dynamic of the match.
Yeah, well, I know that Wondolowski almost didn't go back to San Jose, but you know that he's going to score at least a couple more on Cascadia when the Cascadia teams get stuck facing San Jose.
Well, it will be a fun one with Portland and Houston, no matter what. I do think Portland will get something out of this match. I think, in my eyes, maybe not as good of a shot as Vancouver for any points, but I do give them a good shot at getting at least 1 point in this one. And my prediction for this one is 1-1.
You know, I'm going to be the triple downer this week. I'm going to predict a Cascadia triple loss. Don't hate me, Cascadia fans. I truly do love my Cascadia teams. I want them all to do well. But with Portland not playing their starting 11, Houston looks good. I told you, I like Houston's team this year. Normally, I'm not a huge fan of Houston's team, but I'll have them winning this one 2-0. I think Portland comes out flat. They've got Club America on their mind, not Houston.
Man, the one Cascadia team that's hosting a match, and you're still going against them.
But again, it's so hard because you don't know what the lineups are going to be, my friend. You don't know. If the lineup comes out and it's a full strength lineup, maybe I'll just post something on our page and be like, change my prediction. But if I were Gio Savarese, you cannot put Diego Valeri at his age and have him play 90 minutes and then play 90 more minutes midweek against Club America of all teams. So,
Okay. Well, no matter what, these 3 matches will be fun. One note is the match with LAFC and Seattle that will be on ESPN, and that is on Saturday
yeah, Saturday at 3.
at 3 p.m. So definitely chime in on that one. For our Vancouver supporters, your match is at noon on Saturday on TSN, and for Portland, all I'm seeing is MLS Live on ESPN Plus. I'm kind of surprised I'm not seeing Root Sports on that one.
It's going to be Root Sports as well. They don't show the local broadcasts.
Okay. Well, that match is going to be at 7:30 p.m. and that's a late night match to end Saturday.
I am happy that all 3 of our teams play on the same day this weekend. Because then I can put all my drinking into one day instead of spreading it out to 2 days. Which you can't put a Cascadia game on a Sunday. Here I am having to work on Monday, trying to drink a beer while I watch the Cascadia game. I had to hold myself back and have only one. And that's just brutal. You can't start off the MLS season with a Cascadia game, which I thought was freaking awesome, by the way. Did you see how many rivalry games MLS had to start the season?
Yeah.
You had Montreal and Toronto. You had Portland and Vancouver. You had LA and Miami, which they're putting that rivalry, LA Galaxy and Miami, because it's David Beckham's team, and of course David Beckham played for the Galaxy. They did Cincinnati and Columbus. No, they did Cincinnati and Nashville. Sorry,
Cincinnati and Nashville, which are still extremely close. Like,
yes,
I have family out in Indiana. That is not that far of a drive.
Yes. Anyway, I think that the league did a great job with the week 1 matchups.
All right, and I just wanted to close this show out with the big news, not in the United States or Canada, so it's not in North America, but I do feel that if it was to happen, it would affect everyone in the world, and that is this new European Super League that has been talked about in the past couple days that has created a ton of controversy. We have been seeing on the news protests from all the cities that are involved, or all the teams' fans that are involved, to the point that buses in England were getting stopped and not allowed to come up to the stadium. So players were not allowed to enter the stadium because of the protests being so massive. Front office from Chelsea ended up coming out and begging fans to disperse just so the buses could get in. And there is 12 teams involved that are wanting to join this new Super League that has been talked about forever.
But let me expand a little bit for the casual fan, because
Okay.
you're talking about the protests and why this happened. For the casual fan who isn't deeply in it like me, I'm not reading it quite as much as Eddie, but basically the top teams in Europe, 12 of the top teams, have decided that the Champions League, which is designed for them to play against each other, isn't quote unquote good enough for them. So they are creating their own league, which is built more around like a season where they play each other twice, home and away, blah, blah, blah. And they want to create that to go against Champions League, because Champions League is tournament style. The Super League that they would create would be like any domestic league, only it would just take the top 3 teams from here, the top 4 teams from there, blah, blah, blah. Basically, they're trying to create a super team. If you're a U.S. sports fan, it'd be the equivalent of like the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox and all the top baseball teams trying to start their own league so they don't have to play the minnows and the bottom, so they don't have to play any of them. That's essentially what they're trying to do. Eddie, back to the protests.
Yes, so the protests have gotten so crazy over the past 2 days. This was just announced on Monday that this whole thing was going to happen. I think it was supposed to be set for like the 2022-23 or 23-24 season. But already teams are backing out because of these protests. Chelsea has now said that they are no longer interested. But let's just say this league did happen. How would this affect the rest of the world? How would this affect MLS? Because then it just puts MLS on, in my eyes, a lower pedestal than what MLS is already viewed at. What do you think?
I agree with you. I mean, if they create a super league, it's going to tilt the not just the football world on its head, but it'll also tilt all the sports on its head. So we have to remember that sports are a business first, right? They make money. They make lots of money. So these teams are thinking, how can they make more money? Well, by playing better teams. So you think about the English Premier League, for example. They've got 20 teams on their table. Teams like Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, all these top teams, they waste 2 weekends a year playing the 17, 18, and 19, 20 team on that list. Teams that are almost every year fighting for relegation. They are not making as much money on those particular weekends as they would make if they were playing, say, Real Madrid or Barcelona or, Bayern Munich. So from a business perspective, what these teams are trying to do is they're trying to essentially monopolize their league and make it the league to watch. And their games are always the ones that are highlighted. Because let's face it, when Man United or any of the other top teams are playing one of those bottom teams, that's not a game you turn on a Saturday or Sunday. I'm not going to go watch Manchester United beat up on our team Newcastle, if I'm a casual fan. It's just not going to happen. But would I turn on Saturday to watch Manchester United play against Barcelona and Messi? Of course I would. So from a business perspective, what they're doing makes sense, but they're also going to monopolize the football world.
Well, from the sounds of it, in all reality, it sounds like it's already going to fold before it really even kicks off. So I believe that is good news for the football world. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it right there. I just wanted to at least bring it up in our show because it was big news worldwide, and it would affect MLS, I feel, if it was to happen, because they would be buying players from all over the world. I think they were saying that they were going to have a $6 billion budget to just start the league. And I know we have great players over here in North America. One of them is Davies, who's playing in Germany right now for Bayern. Bayern is not one of the teams that was involved in this, but still, that was the caliber, and he was from out here. And from what UEFA and FIFA were saying, was the players that would be involved in this new league would no longer be allowed to play for their countries. That would be a huge hit for Canada if Bayern Munich was involved in this and Davies was no longer allowed to play for Canada.
Mm-hmm. Could you imagine, if the Red Sox and Yankees and Dodgers just decided that they were just going to play up against each other all the time? Or, the Patriots decided that instead of, when they were dominant, instead of having to play the Miami Dolphins when they sucked, they said, oh, we're not going to play you because you aren't any good. That's essentially what they're doing. They're basically saying, screw the league. We want to play the teams we want to play. We want to create our own schedule. It almost gives you a college football type feel to it, where college football kind of picks who they play in their out of season games and gets to decide who they're playing against. And it's not good. It's not good for competition. It's not good for the fans. I mean, I guess it'd be good for the fans of those teams. But if you're a fan of any of the lower teams, you would never get to see your team play against the best,
Yeah. Well, it doesn't sound like the fans of these teams were very happy about it either. There was many protests against Liverpool, Manchester United, Chelsea. I didn't see anything for too many of the other teams, but those were the main teams I was seeing the protests for. So who knows? Maybe it would fold if they started this whole thing off. I think when you start playing these teams over and over and over, because it's only a 12-team league, you're not playing that many games with the 12-team division. The games aren't going to mean as much anymore, especially when it's just a regular season game against these other clubs. The reason why these clubs get so much money out of these matches against each other is because they're in Champions League. It's
rare they happen. How often do you see the top team from England play the top team from Spain? Not that often. So
the moment you start seeing them every year after year, multiple times, it's just not going to mean anything anymore.
Right.
All right. Well, that's going to be our show. John, do you have anything else to add to this one?
Nope. I just apologize in advance for putting the triple jinx on our Cascadia teams. I'm going to end with go Cascadia.
Well, I'm going to knock on wood for you, and hopefully they prove you wrong, make you look silly, and you'll be apologizing in the next
I would
episode.
love to be eating crow next week.
All right. Again, that's going to be our show. We love you, Cascadia Nation. And as always, go Cascadia.
Go Cascadia.